Hello everyone. Hi. Thank you for coming to my little workshop here. I know people are still coming in, but I'll just start anyway. So yeah, my name, as you all know, is Hart. I'm a professional gamer. I play for Team Western Wolves and Team Mad Cats. I've been gaming professionally for around 19 years now, which is a very, very long time. And it all started for me playing games, locally with my friends, playing in local chip shops, local arcades, mini-cab stations, wherever we could find games, we would congregate and we'd play together. Sometimes we'd go to each other's houses, we'd play all night. Every gamer knows what it means to play all night. You just play and play and play, and you look at your watch and it's 5 a.m. it's like, where did the time go? Anyway, let's keep playing, and that's just a pattern that you get into because of your love, your passion for the games, and that's how it is. And for me, it was never a serious thing. It was never this thing of, I want to be a professional gamer. It was never, I want to be the best, I want to beat everyone, I'm going to overcome my community, my area, the world, whatever. No. It just started with me wanting to enjoy myself. That's what it was. I just wanted to have some fun. Win or lose, if everyone enjoyed themselves, everybody won. And that was all it was about, Now, when I was growing up, popular consoles were Super Nintendo. Well, when I was a lot younger, it was Nintendo. And before that, Commodore, Amstrad, Amiga. All the computers that were out there. And then when I was in high school, it was like Sega Mega Drive. Anybody here have a Sega Mega Drive before? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Few hands. I had a Super Nintendo. Though. You were my enemies. I had a Super Nintendo, but I was a big fan of Sonic, so I had a Mega Drive when I couldn't borrow one from my friend. But yeah, I had a Super Nintendo, and my mum bought me the Street Fighter 2 Christmas pack. Super Nintendo that came with Street Fighter 2, and that's the only reason I wanted it, because it came with Street Fighter. I've got my fix of fireballs and dragons. And so that was where my kind of console fighting career started, really, when I got Street Fighter on Super Nintendo. Now, what that leads to is basically me being able to play at home, but it started to get a bit more competitive, because now you're playing the game that you're used to playing in quite a serious way in the arcade, but now it's at home. So it's weird because home games are always just a bit of fun, just messing about, but now it's a bit serious, so it was almost like, this is a weird little sensation, but we still had fun when we could. And there were no tournaments. It's not like now where you go online and the community will be advertising that they're holding a tournament for everyone to come and take part in. There was nothing like that. It was just, you went to the arcade, you put your money in, and the winner stayed on, and you just put more money. And that was all it was, very, very simple. And all that happened is one day, a guy at the top of a company, probably sitting in a leather seat that swivels, probably wearing a suit and tie, said, hey, we've got this budget, we're going to use this budget to hold a Street Fighter tournament, and we're going to invite everybody in the country to come and take part as a promotion. So that's what they did. And tournaments then were very homebrew, very makeshift. It was all about having cabinets, and then I think every arcade cabinet had an extra sort of TV on top of the cabinet, so people that were watching from behind could see it over the players' heads. And that was all it was. And tournaments were not single elimination, they were not double elimination. All it was it was a timed event, so the time limit for the tournament would be like 4 hours, for example, and whoever had the most wins within 4 hours would be the winner, and that was all it was. So sometimes you wouldn't even have to be the best, you just have to get lucky in where you got to get on and have your turn. If you got on and there was lots of weaker players at that time, if it took a long time for the best players to get on, you could accumulate enough wins before that player comes around to knock you off, so that when you came around again, you'd still be in the lead, and that was the system. I won't bore you too much, but that's how it was. Let me think now, what happened after that? So, my first tournament was in 1994, held in a place called London Trocadero. Most people, some of you, if you've ever been to London, if you ever did sightseeing in London, you probably went to London Trocadero. And that's where the first tournament was. It was on Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which is probably, the godfather of fighting games. If there was ever a game that set the tone for fighting games these days, it's probably Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And I didn't do very well, to be honest. I lost really badly. It was really funny because on the way, I had only ever played in my community, but on the way to the tournament, we were all on the train, me and like 10 friends, we were all celebrating and happy. We were so happy, he's going to win and he's going to come second, I'll come third, and we were all joking about everything, because we really did, I wasn't that good, I was just average in my area. There were guys I couldn't even touch. I was convinced that if I don't win, they will definitely win, because they are so good. In our area, they're the best, no one can even come close. So I was so sure that we would win, And on the way they're all boasting and happy, yeah, we're gonna spend the winnings like this, we're gonna all go to this place and do that together, have dinner, just planning stuff, just dreaming, fantasy land. So on the way they're all excited, on the way back, it was the craziest contrast. On the way back, right, the same people, but we lost so badly, we were obliterated, we were so devastated that on the way back, there was no communication on the train. One person looking out the window, someone else on his mobile, someone looking at the floor. No one making any eye contact with it. We were so depressed. One guy was just like, sitting alone, not saying anything. And all of a sudden he was like, why did I jump? Because he was remembering. He was remembering what happened in the map. Why did I jump? And it was just this time of despair. It was this time of despair and what's going on, man? Sounds like a horror movie. But and it was just this time of despair and turmoil. All our training, all the money we'd spent, all the time we'd skipped something to go and play games. We hadn't gone to a dinner because we wanted to practice. All that, we just felt like all that had come to nothing. And it was a brutal time of realization. People say experience is the best teacher, but it's also the most brutal teacher. You really feel the blow if experience decides to teach you something. So it was our time of reflection, time to learn something. So basically, what that did to our community, I'm from I lived in a place called Croydon then, it's in the South London, sort of borderline London. What that did to our community in Croydon is some players realised they'd never seen the game played to that level. That was the first time they got a real taste of what really hardcore gamers play like. So what that did is some of the gamers that were at the tournament decided that, you know what, I've been to the tournament today, I've seen what is possible, that I didn't know the game was that deep, I didn't know that you could do those things. For me, it's just a bit of fun, I'm not involved anymore, I'm out, and I'm going to do something else with my time. This is too much, it's too hardcore for me, I don't want it anymore. And those players, they didn't show up at the arcade anymore, they didn't come, and that after that day, they didn't really come around anymore. The other half of the community said, wow, I'm so fascinated, I'm amazed, I can't believe the amazing things I've seen, the combos, the reactions, the speed, the skill, it's impressive, I want more of this, what is that, how do I get that good? You can guess which side I was on, right? But yeah, and I was motivated. I didn't know that it was that deep, that it had so much depth, the psychology could be taken that far. Because, if there's anyone out there that doesn't play fighting games, if you're watching a fighting game, if you're watching two characters on the screen, it's very hard to make out exactly how deep their combat goes. You don't know what's going on. You might see, say a punch or a kick, but so what? Okay, I could watch that on a Jackie Chan movie, it doesn't mean anything. But there's a lot of depth that goes into what moves are chosen when and how and things like this, all these different things. So one thing that I realized is that communication is key when it comes to gaming. Communication is really key. It's really important to be able to communicate to an audience that don't understand gaming, that don't know anything about this, welcome, a gaming audience that don't understand games, and be able to communicate to them in a way that's fluid and fun as well. It's got to be fun. Like I said in the beginning, it was about fun for me. I enjoyed it because it was fun. And once you can do that, once you have that platform for communication, people will come on board, people will enjoy it, and they will realize that if anything, even if it's not for them, they will definitely respect it because they understand the creativity and everything that goes into being a good gamer. Now, with that said, I think that one problem we have these days is a lot of people have a lot of passion for gaming. Gaming makes more money than the music and video industry combined now. A lot of people knows that. And so, with this passion, what can I do? Like people that live in small countries, or people that live in big countries that have small communities, or people that live in big communities but no one else really plays in their area, and things like this. So, what do I do? How do I improve? I want to be as good as this guy that I'm watching on YouTube. I want to be like that. How do I get that good? Now, I think this day and age where we have internet, we are a little bit spoiled with outlets. There's so many ways to just obtain information. There's forums, there's YouTube, there's a plethora of media websites, and I think we need to use those a lot more. We need to start getting out there and getting information because there are people out there with knowledge that we want, that we need. They have the knowledge and they're willing to share. It's all about getting out there and communicating, explaining, stating what your problems are, talking about where you're falling short on the game. You're talking about what you need, what you're trying to attain, what's your goals, you know? And getting that more out in the open, because there are people out there, but they just can't reach it because, one, they don't know that you need that help because it's not out there, and two, they just don't know you know, because people don't speak. A lot of the time, people just need to say something. Even here at the event, sometimes people will look at me and they might be a bit intimidated. They don't really want to disturb if I'm talking to someone else, or they don't know if I'm approachable. And then other times, that one person will be like, I'm going to ask him, I'm going to, you know, he's here to talk to people, I'm going to tell him my issue on the game, and I'm going to see what advice he has to offer. And it's about being proactive like that, it's about just getting in there. You know, I mean, I've been to events, you know, as a gamer where I wasn't very good, but I know that this guy is good. This guy standing next to me, I know he's a really good player, and I can learn from this guy, I want to learn something. And I'll go and ask him something, and he'll just sort of shrug it off. Sorry, I'm having some trouble in the Dallas match. Because you could just give me some advice. I've tried everything. I really don't know what to do. You know, you just got to practice. And, you know, I mean, so giving advice is good. It's good to give advice. I mean, he did give me advice, right? But you have to know how to talk to the audience that you're addressing. It's all good and it's really easy to say, yeah, do this and walk off, you know, because that's for you, they should get that because you're at the level where that would make sense, for example. But not everyone is at the same level, and it's about understanding how to talk to people at their level so that they can benefit from the advice you're giving them. And I think that what you need to do is actually go deeper. You know, well, I'm having trouble with the Dowson matchup. What area of the Dowson matchup are you having trouble with? And then you allow them to explain their problem deeper, which allows you to find a more appropriate answer. And that way you can help people more. You know, you can go deeper with advice. I think that if more people do that, it helps build an understanding for games as well, because you'll understand the game deeper just from hearing that advice. Oh, I didn't realize you could think about it in that way, and that will mean something. You'll be able to build on that. And eventually, what you want to do is you want to get to a stage where you can build by yourself. There's a stage where you need support, you need to be told what to do. You know, you need someone to tell you need to start like this, you need to be aiming for this. But you're always individually, independently working to get to a position where you don't need anyone else. You've got enough knowledge now, you understand the foundations of the game well enough that you can just execute things, you can use your creative mind to produce material, fresh material from your training and things like that. And that's where I think you want to get to. That's the position you want everyone to be at, so that you can build a community and have everyone evolving around you. So you know, I've had a couple of people come to me and say, how do I get better at Street Fighter? And it was always because they just didn't have anyone. So I definitely say, you know, utilize your resources, talk to people around. If you have players in your community, then it's even better because you can have short-term goals. I think 2 goals is a good thing, having 2 goals. A short-term goal and a long-term goal. A long-term goal is something like, you know, I want to be the best in the Middle East, for example. You know, there's a Middle East Championships, and I want to win that tournament. I'm going to be first. I'm going to be the champion there. Now, that's a long-term goal. The long-term goal might be a little bit of a stretch if you're just starting out, you're just trying to get better, because it's going to be so far-fetched. The chances of you actually getting first in that tournament it's like, you know, I mean, the percentage is not great. Now, you need that though, because you need to always be striving, you need to always be hungry and using your energy to aim for something bigger than you can achieve at the time. And the short-term goal is for something that's attainable sooner, because you need to reach a number of milestones, you need to pass a number of milestones before you go for that very big grand prize at the end. So if it's a small milestone, it's something like, I want to beat my brother. You know, my brother always beats me, I want to be able to beat my brother, I'm going to practice to be able to beat my brother. Or my sister. Maybe you listen to your sister, I don't know, but you know, maybe I want to beat this person. And you know, a friend around the corner, or this guy that you always play online, you know, every time I log in he's online, I want to beat this guy. He beat me last night, I want to try and beat him today. And just by setting little challenges for yourself, you know, little challenges, it helps you grow. It does. It helps you grow, and you won't even realize it, because the subconscious mind is stronger than humans realize. The subconscious mind is able to be, it's basically able to run 24 hours a day. The regular mind isn't. We have to rest. We have to sleep. While you're sleeping, the subconscious mind is still working, always doing stuff. That's why people listen to tapes when they're learning languages for lessons, you know, because they know that the mind is still active. And with that knowledge, you can actually use that, because when you're working on stuff, Right, to give you an example, there's times where I'm in the training mode, you know, I'm a play Street Fighter, and I'm in training mode, and I'm practicing a specific combo or something. And it's very hard, you know, the timing is so strict that I can't use it, I can't do it perfectly. I need to keep working on it, because if I keep messing it up, then that means in a serious scenario in a tournament, I'm going to make a mistake, lose my opportunity, and that's probably going to lead to me losing the match. So that I can, you know, like minimize risk, and make sure that I can do that 100% before I actually try in the tournament. So because I was practicing that, you know, particular combo, I tried to really focus, you know, turned off my phone, you know, turned everything off, closed the lid on the PC, standby, you know, and the laptop, and I just made sure that I was really focused. And it was really hard. I couldn't do it to the rate I wanted to, and it was like, what is going on here? I gave it a break, you know, I think I had some lunch or something, you know, went back to it later, and all of a sudden I can do it every time. And that made it like, oh, what's happening here? But my mind was working while I thought it wasn't. It was actually processing things. And that helped me. That really made me realize, okay, you know what? This is actually really good, and I'm going to do that. So sometimes don't get frustrated. Actually, keep going, keep working on stuff, keep doing it, and it will improve. I think never giving up, you know, as a mentality, as a kind of Naruto mentality, never giving up. That helps. You know, that helps because it will put your mind in a certain condition, and that will not allow you to. It will make you a lot stricter on your regimes for whatever you do, whether it's gaming, sport, I don't know, training in the gym, whatever. You know, even your day job. Now, people ask questions like, how do you become a pro gamer? How do I get on a salary? How can I join a professional team? I think those questions are good, you know, because it shows motivation, it shows energy. But what I think also is, it's very important not to get into gaming for the wrong reasons. It's very important to get into something because you have a natural passion or drive for it. It's not about, you know, I just want to get paid. I just want to get paid, so let's do this. You know, or I just want to be famous, so let's do this. I think that the best way to maximize who you are as a person is to do what you naturally love. You know, everyone's been to the checkout at the cashier in the supermarket, where the supermarket attendant is just like, she doesn't want to be there, or he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't even want to see the expression on his face. He hates his job. He hates you for shopping in his supermarket. He wishes that you didn't exist. You know, and so these kind of people are not maximizing themselves. I'm not insulting anyone, by the way. You know, obviously, sometimes you don't have a choice in the type of job you have to do. You have to make ends meet, you have to make money. So I'm not insulting those people, but there are many people out there that have a lot of choice in the kind of job that they choose to do, but they deliberately just don't actually make effort. They're not proactive in looking for new opportunities to make themselves comfortable and happy and things like that. Because how you are affects other people. If the cashier's like that, and someone else comes in and the cashier treats them bad, they're going to feel bad, and that's going to continue, and then there's a whole line of things that come out of that. So it's very important to do what you naturally enjoy doing, what you love doing. Extend your passions, because most probably your passions are probably where your talents lie as well. It's not always the case, but it can be the case. So, you know, wouldn't that be ideal? That your passion is where your talents are. If you can develop your talent inside your passion, you're going to be successful at it. You know, and that's something to look at. So that's just what I think. I think that people that are naturally passionate about something always go further, because their level of immersion in that activity will be deeper than someone who's not that into it. And that's what's important. So going back to becoming a pro gamer, if you find that, you know, you're playing a game for fun and you're excelling at it, you're starting to improve, you're getting better in your local competition, and you think, you know what, maybe I can do something with this. If you really find that, then actually take steps to maybe challenging you, maybe start traveling, you know, try and go to another country, a neighboring country, and look at their standards and see if you can compete on their level, things like that. And what that does, whether you win or lose is not what it matters. You're always increasing your experience like that, because you're taking on new challenges, you're setting new goals for yourself, and you're putting your mind in fresh situations. So your mind is always being renewed and being made to think on its feet. You know, your awareness will always be improving, and that's very important. When we become stale, when we become stagnant and stop moving, stop giving our mind new challenges, that's when we get a bit rusty. You know, we don't evolve, and that's, you know, it's not very good. So after you get to become quite consistent in events, you know, you always place high, or you know, you get known in the community for being a good player. That's when companies will probably approach you and ask if you want an opportunity as a professional gamer, if you want to have a year contract, play for a certain team, and they'll try you out, things like that. But as with most jobs like that, where you have a media face, your persona, you know, your character is very important. A lot of people become pro gamers, but then they kind of swallow the company name because they don't know how to act in a professional manner. You know, they don't really know sort of how to be in an interview, for example. And these things are not easy. This kind of thing doesn't come naturally for everyone. It's just, you know, it takes time, it takes experience, you know, and so basically just don't rush things. Some things take more time than others. You know, you might need to just let yourself grow. But if you're enjoying what you're doing, then it's good. And you know, you don't have to think that you're up against the clock. Like if I don't win this tournament or that tournament, then my team's going to drop me. It's not necessarily like that. But yeah, I mean, I can take questions from the audience if anyone at this point has a question. Anyone? Okay. Just taking the mic over.
Who's your favorite Street Fighter character?
Oh, there's 39 characters, man. Really? No, I'm just kidding. I think my favorite Street Fighter character. I don't want to be boring and say the character that I use, but let me just think. It might even be. I mean, I've been using Sagat for so long that he's just become sort of like a little bit of part of me, which sounds weird. I mean, it might be Ryu. I think I like Ryu. I like what he stands for, you know, the guy that just walks here, always determined to find new challenges and succeed. I like his kind of methodology there. So that is quite cool. But yeah, my favourite Street Fighter character, this is going to be really, I'm sure none of you can guess this, but it's actually Eagle from Street Fighter 1. He's an English guy, blonde hair, that had two tonfas. And that was his, or was it two, I can't remember if it was just two sticks, or whether it was actually tonfas, but he had these two weapons. And I really liked him. He featured in Capcom vs SNK 2. But then he hasn't featured in another game since, and I'm really hoping that the fifth character in the new Street Fighter is him, but I know it's not going to be, but you know, you can only have a dream, right? Alright, so that's that. So next question.
Okay. What do you prefer, the orchid cabinet, the sit-down orchid cabinet or the candy cabinet? And the bottom Sanwa or hub cabinet? Or hub button?
Well, having played on so many different cabinets and so many different joysticks over the years, I think my favourite setup is a sit-down Vulix cabinet with Sanwa buttons and a Sanwa stick. Seimitsu is fine too, but that's what I'm used to because I've played in like that in Japan so much. You know, when I first started going to Japan, it wasn't the setups weren't exactly like that, but having played over the years, it's always head-to-head setups with those, you know, configurations. So I'm really accustomed to that now. So that's, you know, kind of how it is. So yeah, next question. Hands up, anyone? Oh, over here.
What are your thoughts on Akuma?
As a character? What do I think of Akuma? Very fast walk speed, good pokes. I think that Akuma is balanced out by having enough stamina. He's a very strong character. Many people say he's the best character in Super Street Fighter 4. But I think that certain parts of his game haven't been exploited because, well, actually it's quite hard to exploit. You know, he kind of has a bit of everything. But definitely his health. You know, if you can find areas to even just trade blows with him, he's not as effective. Just don't get swept. His hard sweep has amazing range and is not punishable by every character. Don't get swept, which is easier said than done, but you can actually bait certain things like certain characters, you can focus his sweep and backdash, and even if you cancel to ultra, if you backdash immediately, you can't punish. So things like that are areas that can be exploited that people just haven't really explored. I mean, but yeah, he's a very, very effective character, and he's top tier. So yeah, you have to know all about him before you can beat him, I believe, which is, you know, kind of how it is against any type of character. Next question. I'll come to you.
Do you play a lot of games?
Well, I love a lot of other games. One that's very new, I'm sure all of you know it, made 1 billion in 3 days. You know, that game is just, oh my goodness, that game is a whole life in itself. You know, you can just live on that game. You know, I've got friends who don't even play the game, they just play tennis. Yeah, the game just playing tennis. Why don't you just go to the court around the corner? What are you doing? You know, because I'll ring them up and you'll be like, yeah, I'm playing tennis. I can hear you're at home. What are you talking about? You're not playing tennis. You know, and GTA is so, you know, it's so addictive because there's so many things you can do that's nothing to do with what you should or are supposed to do. So, you know, it's really fun based on that. And it's just so addictive. You know, you get away with being a rebel, you can break the law, all these cool or supposedly cool things that you could do. But yeah, I know it's not one for the kids. So that's remind you too. Alright, next one. And I do play other games, but to be honest, with my pro gaming life, it's very hard to find time to invest in lots of other things. But I do like lots of other games. I like puzzle games, I like shooting games, I like action games, side-scrolling stuff, even RPGs. But FIFA's great too. You know what? I used to play Pro Evolution Soccer. Anyone used to play Pro Evolution Soccer?
Yeah,
of course.
Everyone.
Right, because I remember Pro Evolution Soccer was actually, at least for me, it was better than FIFA before.
Yeah, but everyone.
I think. Let me see if this is so. I think I remember it was like 2008 or something. There's a FIFA that came out and it was just better. Like the Pro Evo hadn't improved any options or anything. They didn't even have the licenses for the cast. Thierry Henry was like Bobby Stephens or something. It's like next head. And so like it was really weird because you're used to having, because they used to have the licenses for certain characters, but they didn't. And FIFA did. And FIFA had new online modes. It had this whole new creation, like, the career mode. It was really good. And I think everyone moved over, wasn't it? Like everyone moved over to FIFA, wasn't it? And since then it's been FIFA, so I like it. Good. Alright, next question.
Which one of the new characters and new DLC that you were most excited about?
Oh, the top out of the 5, right? The new 5 characters. Well, will be 5.
Will be 5.
I could say question mark. Out of the 4 characters that we know about, I'm not really a big Elena fan. I've never liked Elena. I've always hated her music on Third Strike. It's very annoying. So not Elena. And on Cross Tekken, I found it quite annoying as well.
Rolento fan?
I am a Rolento fan, but I know that everyone's going to be focusing on infiltrations Rolento, so I don't want to be that guy, the guy that looks like he just wants to be. When Street Fighter Cross Tekken first came out, I used to main Raven and Hugo. I used to main Raven and Hugo. That was my team. So I will be going with Hugo because I really like Hugo from 3S as well, and he was my first character on Cross Tekken, so I'm going to give him a go on the Street Fighter. So it's Hugo. All right, next question. Let's go to you, Mr.
Which one of the Naughty Dogs games you think is the best?
Naughty Dogs games I want to have even played any of them. Do you mean like Crackdown and stuff?
Uncharted 1, 2, 3.
Sorry?
Uncharted 1.
Oh, okay.
The last
I'm going to be really honest, right? I've got all the Uncharted games, but they're still in the wrap. They're still in the cellophane wrap. I'm just going to be really honest. Like, that game was a bit... No. I haven't played it. So yeah, but I haven't. I've only heard really good things from my friends about those games, so I assume they're really good. And I've seen the reviews and the ratings, so but I haven't personally played it, so I don't want to lie. All right, who's next?
What's your favorite fighting game in all time?
My favorite fighting game of all time. It's a tough one. It's very tough because all of the developers have a completely different creative vision when these games are created, and although all of them are really good, they do have their subtle differences that makes it really hard to choose a best one when they're all amazing. I'm a big fan of the King of Fighters franchise, I'm a big fan of Street Fighter, I'm a big fan of Tekken, and I'm a big fan of Virtual Fighter as well, like Sega. All amazing games. I've played Dead or Alive 2 a bit, and I think it's a good game, but I just haven't personally had that much time to invest in it. So I can't really say, but I think Dead or Alive is a good game. My favourite one is probably Virtual Fighter.
What about Mortal Kombat?
I felt Mortal Kombat was a bit limited in terms of options compared with the other ones. I think Mortal Kombat's a good game as well, but and Injustice as well. But I think that the others, King of Fighters, Street Fighter, like especially Third Strike, and the Virtual Fighter series offer a deeper way to use your mind. It's like it goes further. Yeah. Next question.
Did you play Battlefield 3?
Sorry?
Did you play Battlefield 3?
Battlefield 3.
Battlefield 3. So Battlefield 4 is out now, right?
Yeah.
Battlefield 3. No, I didn't play it actually. It's one of the games that I always looked for in esports tournaments, and I never really saw it that much. It doesn't seem to get much love. I don't know, but I know it's a good game. But yeah, sorry. My top 3 Nintendo games. Any time, right? Of all time. Okay, make it easy for me, please. Make it easy for me. I really enjoyed Super Mario Galaxy. When I first played that, I was absolutely blown away. I I really enjoyed Super Mario Brothers 3 on the NES. I don't know if you played that one, that's really old. But that was one of my favourite games. I think I took a day off school. Super Mario Brothers 3 and oh wow, this is tough. Gave me only 3, this is so unfair. Maybe Super Mario Kart, maybe? That was Super Mario Kart is a classic, man. That's a legendary. Alright, so
do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. My YouTube channel is youtube.com. Prodigal Son Comes Home. Okay, it's Prodigal Son Comes Home. So yeah, you know, I'll go through contact details. youtube.com/Prodigal Son Comes Home.
How are you? My name is Jassim. Second time, I want to say thank you for coming to Bahrain. Visit Bahrain. All fans here love you. Thank you for coming here. My question is very simple. First, come to in your company, Mad Cats. First time everybody is dreaming come on the company. First time you give you what you need for them to make this all like power you have.
So what do I need to offer Mad Cats?
Yes, what you give you for this, all this give money, all this. But what the best thing they give you for make all this?
I think, you know, from a community standpoint, what makes Mad Cats an amazing company is Mad Cats were able to bridge a gap in the community. They were able to bring everyone together by offering amazing equipment, offering amazing peripherals for gamers to unite, because that brought about unity. Before, people were kind of floating around, didn't really know what stick to use and things like that. You know, fighting games, didn't know what stick to use. When Mad Cats brought out the fight stick, the tournament edition fight stick, that unified everybody, because whenever you went to a tournament, as soon as you see a fight stick, you know that this person is your friend. Mad Cats made friends out of people. This person is your colleague, this person is your brother, this person is your associate. You know him. You feel, when you see that someone else has a Mad Cats stick, you feel close to that person because he's like you. He shares the same passion as you. You know what I'm saying? So there wasn't one stick that everyone used to use before, you know? I mean, there was the Namco sticks back in the 90s, but you know, they phased out when they stopped being remade. And at one stage there was a few sticks around, but there wasn't one global stick that every community shared interest in until Mad Cats brought out the tournament edition fight stick, and that unified all of the fighting game world like no other company's ever done. Over here, what do we have here?
You know Daigo, right?
Of course, I know Daigo, of course.
Do you think he's the best real player like ever? Or can you beat him?
Oh, come on, really? Okay, look. Maybe
It is possible.
you were saving him, weren't you? You were saving him. Let's save the hard questions for last. We'll put him under pressure. Let's see if he sweats. Right, so check this out, right? I'm going to be really real right now. Now, I think that right now, Tiger is the best player in the world at this point in time. I think so, just my opinion. From what I've seen, you know, over the recent months, his performances have been phenomenal. I know he didn't win Evolution, but his performances at Evolution and after Evolution have been absolutely amazing. And I think that right now, with his experience, his knowledge set, his ability to research opponents, he's the best player in the world. Now, I have a number of tournament wins over Daigo. I don't think I'm better than Daigo, but I have a number of tournaments over him. I even won a Ryu mirror against him in a tournament and eliminated Daigo. But even with that said, it doesn't make me a better player than Daigo, because in tournaments, sets are very, very short, so they're very quick. It's sometimes 2 out of 3, you know, and when it's 2 out of 3 and one person wins 2 matches, it's not long enough, you know. I mean, at that level of Street Fighter, at that level of any game, the amount of knowledge that's kept up in here by professional players the knowledge base is so large that you can't express all of that knowledge within the time frame that a tournament match gives you yet. So you're limited to a few options. You're limited to going at your opponent in a limited manner. You can choose this way, that way, or that way. You can't use everything. You can only choose a few things. Or you can be really careful and try and be super safe, not give him an inch, you know? Just be really safe, don't give up any openings. And you can choose that way. Or you can go all in tank, just rushing down aggression, just to bulldoze him. Each carries its own risk. Each method of you know, each strategy carries its own risk, has its own reward as well. And sometimes, just sometimes, players can beat other players in tournaments just because their method happened to be the right method. They didn't actually know it would work that well. They just went with something they felt, they went with a gut feeling, and it was successful. Other times, not so successful. But it's not what determines who's better. Maybe it determines who's better for the platform. Maybe it determines who's better in a best of 3 or in this situation or that day. But overall, it takes a bit more than that to, you know. So that's why I take a stance of, well, I beat Daigo, but it doesn't make me better, you know, stuff like that. So Daigo is probably the best Ryu player of all time. I can't think of another Ryu player that's done more work with Ryu than he has globally, you know, ever sort of over the decades, because he's been playing a long time. One of the longest players. I think he's one of the only players that's been playing almost as long as I have. So yeah, you know, there we go. Best player in the world, Daigo. Next question.
Can you tell us about your daily life as a pro gamer?
Dead or alive?
Daily life, yes.
Oh, daily life. Sorry, daily life. Okay. Are you ready? We need some Rocky music, man.
Sing something.
Okay. I know someone's got Eye of the Tiger on their iPod. Come on. Okay, so I was joking. A typical day for me, you know, I'll keep it game related because if I'm practicing for a tournament, then my mind is very much focused on the task at hand. So what I'll be doing is I'll wake up and, you know, I'll go and have a shower, and I'll go and prepare breakfast. And while I'm making my breakfast, I'll be thinking about what training I should be doing, what game I should train on for that day. Like, should I train on King of Fighters? Should I train on Tekken? You know, because of the top, depending on the tournament. And I'll already start thinking of like my holes, my own problems, because I know, you know, a player who knows when you lose, you know where you went wrong. Maybe not straight away, but with reflection. In hindsight, you'll be like, I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done that. You'll know, you've got experience, you know. So those are the things that I'll start thinking of, and I'll think about what I can do differently, what I should work on, how I can make new things for the next one, you know, setups and stuff like that. Now, Street Fighter 4 is a very, very setup-based game. Every character has some sort of setup that they can use somewhere on certain characters, everyone. It's not limited to just the number of characters. Everyone has a setup they can use. So it's very much a setup-based game. Now, knowledge of setups is imperative. You need to have knowledge. You need to be able to lock your opponent down. You need to be able to corner him into a number of very, very limited options to gain the upper hand. And when you're able to do that, it's very, very advantageous. So it's all about, before going into the match, because you're not going to just do these things on the fly, you have to do it before the match, you know, and get your knowledge down. And when you're in the training mode, this is what I'm doing. So I'll have my breakfast, I'll run training mode, you know, for example, I'm training mode. Now, when I'm in training mode, I will train like I'm in the match. I won't train like I'm training, I'll train like that is the match there. The opponent is the dummy, and I'm doing something. So, to give an example of what that means exactly, if I'm going for a counter kick combo, for example, I won't just put the options to, I won't just change the options to counter hit and then go through the motions. I'll actually think of a situation where I can land that counter hit in the match, so that when it's time to use that setup in the match, I'll know exactly what I'm aiming to do. And that will help me because the more things you can take your mind off, the easier it is for the match. You can put more capacity into focusing on your opponent's movements. Because if you think about it, things like setups and stuff are already predetermined things. You know that you're going to go for this, and after that it's this, and this. But what can't you predict? Your opponent. You never know what your opponent's going to do. So you need as much capacity going into your opponent's movements than any other element of the game. The other elements, obviously time, your meter, also quite unpredictable. You don't know how much meat you're going to have at the beginning of round 2, for example. You don't know what you're going to need in round 1. So things like that, there are times where you're not going to know what you need, and then you have to work on it. Now, so I'll train. Now, I have breaks now. I don't just train solid, you know, I might train for a few hours and I'll definitely have a break. Let my mind rest. Coming to you, know where I'm from. I'll let my mind rest. Then, you know, I'll go back, and a lot of the times the second half of training is more productive, a lot more productive, because all my ideas have been expressed, and now it's just about kind of just I don't know, just like filing everything, just like the sawdust, you know, and just sandpapering, you know, the wood down basically, just putting the finishing touches to everything, and basically once that's done, then I'm ready to use it in the match. And then I might go online after that and use that in the match. So that I'm used to how an opponent reacts or gets put into the situation where I can use it. So it's very, very much just part of my subconscious once it's time to use it in real time. And that's one thing, that's kind of how I train. Yeah, I mean, the rest of my day will be pretty much normal. Like I'll log in, check emails. If there's work to do, I'll reply, whatever, and I'll finish my presentation, But yeah, I think I have a very much a slightly boring life outside of the epic training or if there's I'll call Skype meetings and I mean I have I'm a consultant as well, so work-wise I might have to be on call for business and stuff like that. So that's how I train. that's a daily life. Sorry, you've been waiting at the back. I'll come to you too.
Which console do you use? PC, PlayStation, or Xbox?
I use wait a second. Who said Xbox? Put your hand up if you think I use PlayStation 3. Put your hand up if you think I use Xbox 360. Wow, that is a lonely group. That is a lonely group. I think you two should sit together. That was really bad. No, I'm just kidding. So I actually use both consoles. So you both win, so you all win. And I use PlayStation for Tekken, for some Caliber 5, for GTA 4 when I used to play that. I don't play it anymore. 5 now. And for just various little games I have that are on the PS, like on the PS Store that I don't have on Xbox. And then Xbox is for more or less everything else really. I've got old games like Shinobi, I've got Bionic Commando, all different games, Beyond too. All different games, and so mostly Xbox, mostly. So, and then I don't play Pokemon X and Y, although I should because the whole world is playing it. But I'll probably catch up at some point. Who hasn't asked a question? Yes, you sir.
If you choose between a game with the good graphics and bad gameplay, and a game with a bad gameplay and good graphics, what do you choose?
Well, I'll take that. Bad graphics and good gameplay any day of the week. If the gameplay is good, I will get involved. If the game isn't immersive for me, if I can't get into the game because the gameplay is not interesting, I won't stay with the game. So no matter how beautiful the graphics look, no matter how interesting, how shiny I can do my cream in the mirror, but no, it's not gonna work. So gameplay will work for me. Who's next?
Have you played Guilty Gear or Blaze Blue?
Yeah, I've played Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue. I really like both of them. I think Guilty Gear is slightly deeper than Blaze Blue. I've seen that they don't have much of a following in the UK. They do have a scene, but it's not as big as the other fighting games, and it's a shame really because they are very, very quality games, so it's quite sad that they don't get as much love as they should. But yeah, I think they're very, very good games. Right. Good.
What is the worst experience you had gaming?
The worst experience I had in my gaming life? I think the worst experience I had in my gaming life is in 2003, okay? And in 2003, I trained for a tournament called Evolution, which you now know is a massive worldwide brand. It wasn't as big in the early 2000s. But in 2003, in my local community, I was pretty good at Tekken Tag Tournament 1. I was pretty good. And I got to the stage where I had played everybody in my local area, did everyone in the UK, and I'd done pretty well at this. And so I wanted to increase the challenge. I wanted to get out there and find that more people that I could play against to increase my experience. So I started traveling around Europe, and I did very well around Europe, And then one day I heard about this big tournament that's going to happen in America called Evolution. So I thought, maybe I can take part, maybe I can be a part of that tournament, maybe I could go there and do something. So I heard that the Korean champion would be at this tournament, on the forums. They said, yeah, the Korean champion is going to be there. And his name is Kim Jong-un. They said he's going to be there, he's an amazing player. No one can beat him, he's never lost, blah, 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 blah. So I thought, let me set a challenge for myself. So I challenged him. I think I challenged him for money as well. I said, let's play, we're going to play this many matches, and it's going to be for this amount. The loser has to pay this amount, and then I started training really hard because now I know that there's something to lose. You know, I didn't want to lose in front of all these people and be embarrassed. You know, I wanted to win. And also, I was very much the underdog. You know, being from a non-Asian country, everybody thought, who's this British guy? He's got no chance. There's no way he's going to win against a Korean grandmaster. So I trained really hard, and I trained every day. You don't understand. I trained every day. I looked like I came from, like, you know, some like old, like. I looked like a black Santa Claus. my beard was so long because I hadn't shaved. I've been training every day. My beard was so long. That time, I had no life. Right? My friends would call me, turn it off. You know, back to training. Yeah, I was so in the zone. You know, it's a long time ago now, 10 years ago. But yeah, I was so focused on this challenge, and I didn't really want to be disturbed and stuff. But I trained something like maybe 8 hours a day. Maybe six to 8 hours a day when I could. Some days I didn't train at all, then the next day 6 hours again, stuff like that. So I went to America, I flew to LA, and I met this guy, and the challenge was set up. The cameras were ready, 2 seats were there, he took his seat, I took mine, and we played. And the challenge took 4 hours, 4 hours long. So for 4 hours straight, I had to be in the zone, focused, not listening to the comments behind me, take no notice of everyone else, and just zoned into the screen. And that does crazy things to your brain. I won't advise it. But for 4 hours, I was just in the zone, completely focused, just drinking water, keeping myself hydrated, and that was it. And I won. I beat him. It was the first 26 challenge, and I won 26 to 21. And it was the first time that a foreign player had ever beaten a Korean player on a fighting game in a serious set. But, as happy as I was, it wasn't quite over yet. Because the actual tournament was the next day. Now, the thing is, I was pretty happy with my win. I'm like, you know what? Tomorrow's going to be easy, man. I've got this, man. I'll be 26-21. You don't know about me. You know, and I was pretty smug. I was proper like, yeah, tomorrow I'm just going to go. I'll make it close, you know, like, you know. And I was really, really confident. I was very, very confident. But he's a smart player. When he went home that night, he didn't cry and mope, he didn't complain, he just practiced. He practiced, and he practiced, and he remembered about the matches, he remembered where he went wrong, he thought of his mistakes. And the next day, we played in a tournament, and it was me and him in the grand finals. Me and him, I got to him. I was ready for it. I knew he was too good. He was too much better than everyone else. I knew no one would beat him. So I knew that I would be playing him in the finals. It was me and him in the grand finals. And he just took me in the finals. Saw me like that, and he just. That's me in the finals, you know. And it was not like the night before. And it was a big mistake on my part because of how I won the night before, I was so confident that I didn't give him enough respect the next day and just went in guns blazing and it backfired. And I lost the tournament, I came second. So I'd flown all the way to America, won the battle, lost the war. And that was that. And I had to learn that. And that's probably my worst experience because it was a big tournament. It would have been my first world championship in Tekken. You know, and that was a very painful defeat. Very painful. It was one of like my friends on the train. So sad. Brian, you're right. Yeah. You know, just really upset. But you get over that, you know. And it brings me to my next point, where losing is actually something good sometimes. It's very, very important. We'll get back to questions in about 5 minutes. But losing is very, very important sometimes. If you're playing a game, it's not only about winning. I've been in both situations. I've been in situations where I've only lost, and I've been in situations where I've only won. It's very, very important to lose sometimes. It's very, very important to experience, to embrace the loss, to understand why you lost, to understand where you went wrong, that you weren't good enough, you weren't as good as you thought you were. It's really good to know how that feels and to embrace that and take that on board and then use that as fuel to train up harder the next time. At that stage, sorry?
Lose to learn.
Lose to learn.
Lose to learn.
Lose to learn. I like that. I like that. And it's very important because it will prepare your mind, because it will put reality into check. You know, you will be like, I'm vulnerable. Feeling your vulnerability. When are humans strongest? When they're backed into a corner, when they're vulnerable, when they're in danger. That's when we strike, you know? And it's the same with gaming. When you feel that there's a risk, you do all you can to nullify that risk. You don't want to lose. And so that's why When he lost, he went into training, he did what he needed to do, and the next day came back stronger and got the win. So it's about that. So what I'm trying to address with this is, if you're playing someone on any game, and you can't beat them, don't get depressed. Don't jump into despair. Don't think there's no hope. Everything that you're learning there is going to help you, and you are setting up future victories with every single loss that happens. You are setting it up. As long as you don't give up and you keep a positive mindset, you are going to build from those losses. The experience level is going to go up, and you're going to be able to build for future victories, and that's what it's about. So that's, is there any other questions?
What's the best game you played? The King of Fighters or Street Fighters or Tekken?
Out of those three, I personally like King of Fighters. I like King of Fighters the most because it was 3-on-3. I really enjoyed the team elements. I really enjoyed that you had to manage 3 characters because it was very difficult to master 3 characters. One character can take months to learn, but being able to master 3 shows a lot of, a lot of ability, a lot of intestinal fortitude, a lot of talent, and I always enjoyed playing King of Fighters. So yeah, you.
Do you play Pokemon? And if you do, what is the best game you play?
I think my favorite Pokemon game is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon 2. There you go. Alright, so next one. Okay, you guys.
Do you prefer the arcade cabinets or consoles? And also, do you like the mashups, like for example Capcom versus Marvel?
He sneaked in 2 questions. Did you hear that? I prefer arcade because arcade for me over console was a lot more gritty. It was a lot more raw. It was a lot more harsh. When you lost in the arcade, you felt it because you were putting in money. You were paying to play. You were paying to lose. Man, when I was in the arcade, I went there, my wallet was fat. My wallet got flatter and flatter and flatter until there was no coins in it. It was just proper losing all my money. And but because when you're playing, there's something on the line. You learn quicker or something. It trains you. At home, it's too flexible. You're not losing anything. You're just in the comfort of your own home. There's no one watching behind. In the arcade, it was embarrassing. Some guy keeps beating you in front of everyone. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot more on the line in the arcade, and I like that. I think it set the stage for training for a sport better. Yes.
Do you have birthday or Christmas day or anniversary?
Sorry.
He's asking about your PS3 or your Xbox.
Oh, my ID?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end, if you need that, you can ask me. Okay, no problem. Next question.
Why are Southeast Asians always better?
Whether it's cooking, fishing.
Wow, really? You're going to go there? Because athletics, last time I checked, weren't Asians
Except that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things, okay. I don't see any Asians in UFC. When you?
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Okay, but what? Anyway. In my experience, I might have a semi-limited knowledge in the area, but whenever I've been around Japanese people, they seem very, very focused. When they have a task in front of them, they're very focused, they're very channeled, and they get results. They're very determined. They see it through to the very end. And this shows in gaming. This shows in how they train in gaming, because they will not stop until they've got everything down. And they'll practice until the execution is flawless. But even in gaming, they're not the best at in esports. They're not the best at League of Legends. Okay. But it's very different between countries and between which games. Sometimes the Japanese will be better and stuff like that. But it does seem. But I think they put in more hours. I don't think anyone plays as much as them and to that level as much as them. And I think it's about community a lot of the time. Like for example, on fighting game in Japan, they have so many arcades, or they used to have more. They have so many arcades, and they have books to teach them the frames of all the moves. They have books to teach them techniques, combos and stuff like that. They have so many more tools and so many more resources than people in the US, for example, or people in the UK or in Europe. And it shows in their activity, it shows in their results. And it becomes really difficult when you're trying to compete against that if you have less time, you don't have arcades, you don't have a community, your online is not good, you don't have any books, you know, it becomes really, really difficult. So for fighting at least, I think definitely one of the reasons they are a lot better than, you know, the Western players is because they have more resources. Other than that, I think they put more time in it and they might be more creative in some areas, but the creativity may be based on having a better foundation just from having better communities around them. You know, that might come from that. So. But I've seen a lot of talent just as great or even greater than Asian talent outside of Japan or outside of Korea or Asian countries. But most of the time, these players don't have a place to develop. They don't have people to play with. They don't have online. They don't have, you know, so it's hard for them. Thank you. It's a real stretch for them to improve, you know. So yeah, maybe that will change in the future. But who knows? Yes, sir.
Are you planning on breaking any other record?
I actually am. Don't tell anyone else. Don't tell anyone. The next record I'm planning to break is I want to be the only fighting gamer to have won a game or to have won a number of tournaments in every single continent of the world. I've got the country one. I've won the most tournaments in most countries. I want to have every continent as well. That might be my next one. Maybe someone's done that already. I don't know, but I'll look it up. All right. Last few questions now. Yes. Yes. Sorry. Of course.
Yeah, so I was wondering, sorry. Yeah, I was wondering, fighting games seem to have enjoyed a massive boom in popularity with the beginning of this generation with the rise of Street Fighter 4 and PlayStation and all that. But it seems that through time, this popularity seems to be receding a little bit. Now, naturally, that's a question that I would posit to a game developer, but I'm quite interested to hear what a pro fighting gamer has to say about that.
I think that what you're seeing there, when you're getting like a massive boom of gaming, of fighting games in esports, and you're seeing a bit of a decline, people just showing a lack of interest. I think that the fighting game community, when it's involved in esports territory, is less developed. It's less developed. There's less money being funneled into the community, and it's not as built up, you know. And because of that, you're seeing that it's getting kind of sidelined sometimes at an event. You know, whenever I've been to esports events where fighting games were involved, they were always like the minor part of the tournament. You know, League of Legends and StarCraft will have grand stage, but then Street Fighter will just be on the side. They'll have like a small stage, and that'll be that. You know, or Injustice will be on the side. And fighting games are always on the side. And I think, as popular as Street Fighter has brought fighting games back to be, I think that you're going to need to see more money going into esports, fighting games for esports, for people to stay with, you know, for people to actually give it more value.
Yeah, right. No, I was actually more interested in, like, not necessarily the competitive scene itself, but more as a general popularity.
Okay, well, in that case, I think that as other genres in esports are more developed, their method of communicating to the general public is first. It's very practiced. You know, they've gone over it so many times. They know what terms to use to make it interesting for the community of gamers that don't really play, casual gamers. Whereas fighting games is slightly less developed in that area. Now you're getting a number of talented, you know, shoutcasters or broadcast journalists that are coming into it that know a lot about how to communicate to a general audience. And so now you're seeing a bit of attention being given, but there's still a hole there. It's still missing some communication, you know. And I think when the communication goes up, then fighting games will have more of a place in general communication and have more potential to be televised and things like this. I think it's just a matter of time. Yeah. All right. So last 3 questions, guys. Last 3 questions. There we go. All right. So.
Did you ever play League of Legends? Did you ever play League of Legends?
League of Legends. I never played League of Legends because I don't have any friends. No, I'm just kidding. I don't play League of Legends because. Just literally, I mean, I just never got into it because League of Legends came about at a time where I was very heavily into achieving something on Street Fighter, very heavily into training, my mind was very much embedded in the game. I wasn't willing to take on any new projects, if you see what I mean. It just came out at that time, and now it's really big, you know, it's massive. I'd like to play it. I'd like to try it. You know, everyone talks about it. Everyone says crazy things. I've had people say, well, you know, if I lose on Street Fighter, then it's okay. I don't care. But if I lose on League of Legends, oh my God, I rage. I go crazy. You know? I've had that. People have said that to me. So it's like, wow, what's it all about? What's going on? So I want to try now. You know? And I really like to give it a go. So, what else?
Since you played with some Bahraini gamers in Street Fighter, what did you find our style of gameplay? You seem like we use a lot of combos, or we are more strategic, or stuff like that?
I always find it's really character based. You know, obviously if you're playing someone that uses like a rushdown character like Phaedon, then you're going to see more like pose and footsies and combos when they're up close and stuff. And then obviously it's going to be more strategy like zoning if they're a projectile character. But trying to look at what directly I saw different with the Bahraini players is I think that, well, I mean, of course I can see that everyone's really passionate, but I noticed that people were not afraid to just strut their stuff. People were not holding back. They're very aggressive and they'll do what they need to do. You know, they won't just like, I thought they were just like, oh, it's Ryan, we're going to give him a lot of respect. No, they just went in and did their stuff, and I really like that because you have to be like that, very aggressive. But again, I think that, you know, I can see that there's a lot of players, and you can see that, like, maybe they were really good before, but they haven't played because the community's shrunk. You know, the less players now, everyone's moved to a different game, or they got married, or they got a new job, or they play League of Legends now, or, you know, just different things. And now you don't have as many players, so it's hard to build, it's hard to improve now, you know, and I'm seeing that there's a lot of potential, but it's hard to develop that. And I've seen that problem in a lot of countries, in a lot of communities, so it's just one of those things where you kind of just have to group together. It doesn't have to be 50 of you, it just has to be like 5 guys or something, just 5 of you, and you meet regularly and you train together, and you watch stuff together, you watch materials, learn off each other, and you just improve like that. And I think any community starts out a veteran these days, and it's just, that's fine, you know, as long as you can get the guys together, and it's regular enough that it's part of your practical daily life, or, you know, like your other day, then, yeah, why not, you know, keep it going. But as long as the drive is there, and time, then usually make something work. And it'd be nice to see, you know, Bahraini in top 8 at you. I'll be cheering, I'll be like, yeah, look, Ryan, where are you from? You're not Bahraini. I am today, I am. Come on, it'd be really cool. So yeah, no, I'm very much for having the world unite a lot more on games, you know, champions from everywhere, not just 3 countries, you know, everywhere. That would be so amazing. So yeah, all right.
What do you think is better as a boss, Bison or Gil?
I don't know about Gil, man. I've never been into the whole Y-front thing, you know, Gil. He wears these really ugly looking, like nappies. It looks like he's wearing nappies. I don't like that. And Bison all the way. And Bison wears he wears like a cap, man. He's a boss. You know what I'm saying? Bison down the street, he wears a cap and a cloak. No, sorry, he wears a cap and a cape. If I see that guy coming down the street, I'm crossing the road. I'm going there. So, he's a boss. And Bison. Alright, last question, folks. Last question.
What made you remain so much interested in gaming?
Yeah, it was from. I'll close on this point, but as I said earlier, it was actually just from liking the experience of playing. The first time I played a game, I was so fascinated that when I press a button, just like turning on a light, immediately a reaction is produced on the screen. That, for a 10-year-old boy, that was fascinating. I couldn't believe it. You punched him. Okay. It's real. What? And I was so amazed. I couldn't believe my eyes. This is too much. So the money went in. The money, more money, more money. You know. After that, I went to buy lunch. Empty pockets. You know, this is how it was. So I just loved it. You know, it was funny. It drew me in. It pulled me in like a fishing rod. I couldn't stop. And after I got addicted, then whatever game came out, I would try it at least once or twice. You know, shooting game, racing game, I'd try everything. And after a while, fighting games just seemed to be more my thing. I liked the element of competition. You know, it's personal. There's one guy you're playing it. I like that. you know, and I've always kind of been into stuff like that. I think I always like martial arts and, you know, combat and stuff like that. So I think that was more me. And then I continued because I enjoyed it. I didn't continue because I wanted to be the best. I didn't continue because I wanted to be a professional player or be a champion. I continued because I enjoyed the experience of playing, whether I won or lost. So like I said, if you enjoy it naturally, then pursue it. If you have a natural drive, a passion for it, keep it going, and the results will follow. And that's kind of how I, you know, that's my little philosophy on that, you know, I believe that. And that's how it turned around to have me here today. So thanks for listening, guys. It's been great. Thank you. I'll get to you. One sec. We're going to have one more question for the gentleman at the back. Just to make him happy. Go.
Very interesting question. All the time. Me or?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
The one problem that we're facing when we're playing fighting games is not finding somebody else who has the same strategy, same moves, same game style. So since the next generation of consoles is coming, but we're gonna implement this feature, are you interested in battling against another Riot Hart?
So are you talking about a development of AI or something? Or
Yeah, it's learning AI in the next generation of consoles. I know Xbox One is gonna feature that.
We've had a similar example on Virtual Fighter on the PS, where they had built-in AI from top players around Japan, where they
because you're playing style, and what do you think if you challenge another Riot Hart?
It would be interesting, yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting because it might make you aware of your own flaws. It might open up your knowledge base based on what you're seeing. You know, like, I didn't know I did that. Okay, let me change that. You know, so that might be interesting in that way. I'm not really convinced of the execution. I understand the premise. I'm not convinced that the execution of that would be that effective. Though. I need to see it running and play with it and see how it is. But it sounds really interesting, the idea. I mean, yeah, obviously if you could have a player of your, it's basically saying you could have someone that's on your level to practice against.
Same game style,
yeah,
same
exactly.
and everything.
Yeah, so, you know, it's someone that's on your level, a player that's on your level, that's going to help you improve because they're pushing you. It's hard to beat them, so you have to do everything.
So you have to beat yourself.
Yeah, so yeah, it'd be interesting. I would like to see that happen one day.
Draw.
Draw game, every game. So who else had a question?
I think
you had.
After we finish here, I want to bring all the people in the picture with you.
Okay, let's do that. Let's all have a picture afterwards. All right, and I've got one more question. Who wants it? Oh, okay, that's quick.
Do you play WWE fighting?
Oh, I wanted to meet Kevin Nash. Did anyone want to meet Kevin Nash? I really wanted to meet Kevin Nash. You know, what we'll do is we'll email him, yeah? And me and you will go to America and I'll just watch him jackknife you. You just, obviously, there he is. He said he really wants to be jackknifed. He's right there. You just do that. Thank you guys, it's been really great. You've been amazing.